given the state of the world, given everything that's been going on, there's a really good chance that you missed everything that happened with abortion rights news last week. So I'm going to give you the quick and dirty rundown, just take you through the top stories, just to make sure that you don't miss anything, because there was a lot and you're not going to want to miss it. Most important story this week, I think that you're not going to see it anywhere, unfortunately, is that the Trump administration told the New York Times that certain kinds of birth control, like the pill and IUDs, are not actually birth control at all, but are abortions. I have the full story at the newsletter. I also made a video about this if you want to look back. But this is a real statement that they gave to the Times. No one is talking about it. This is something that feminists have been warning about for a long time, that the way that Republicans will try to ban birth control is by claiming that certain kinds of contraceptives are not actually birth control, but are abortifacients. In related news, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett gave an interview where she seemed to indicate that she thinks that contraception is something that's left up to the states and not a broad right. This was an interview that she was giving about her new book, and she was asked about how the overturning of Roe, will impact things like emergency contraception and IUDs. And what she said was those are issues that are now left to the democratic process, and states are working those out. Definitely alarming. Speaking of the Supreme Court, it became a lot more likely that the Supreme Court is going to hear a case on shield laws. Shield laws are the laws in pro-choice states that protect abortion providers from out-of-state criminal prosecution, out-of-state civil suits, so that, a New York abortion provider can ship pills to someone in Texas and Texas can't arrest them, though Texas would like to. In fact, Texas is suing a New York abortion provider right now, and New York's Attorney General, Letitia James, just announced that she is going to intervene in that suit, and her intervening means that it's a lot more likely that that case is going to end up in front of the nation's highest court. While we're talking about shield laws, we have some good news on that front. California just expanded their shield law this week. They passed a law that says abortion providers can keep their names off of prescription labels for abortion pills. Incredibly important, because the cases that we're seeing, like the one I just told you about in Texas, where they're suing a New York abortion provider, they're finding providers because their names are on those pill bottles, right? And so this adds an extra layer of protection for providers. They still have to put their practice name. They're not like prescribing it anonymously, but it means that it's a little bit harder for Republican AGs, Republican prosecutors, to go after individual doctors and providers. The law in California will also allow patients to keep their names off of prescription labels, which is really important for people who are in abusive relationships and maybe don't want their partner to know that they're ending a pregnancy. In other good news, Illinois passed a law that says public universities need to make abortion accessible to students, either through the campus health center or through a relationship with external providers. Incredibly important, because while Illinois is a pro-choice state, doctors there are being inundated with out-of-state patients, which means that it's harder for college students to be able to get care. So this law is going to make it just a little bit easier for young people to be able to get the abortions they need. A couple of stats and studies this week. A new report from the Fairness Project found a 95% increase in legislation aimed at stopping or complicating the ballot measure process. You can imagine why that is. It's because they don't want people putting abortion on the ballot. They know that voters overwhelmingly support abortion rights, so they're trying to make it harder for voters to have a direct say on the issue. NBC News had a poll about Gen Z this week that was really interesting. It was about the political gender gap, right? Like, we know that young men are skewing more conservative, young women are skewing more liberal, but this had this other question about how you personally define success. And what they found was that men were much, much, much more likely to personally define success as getting married and having children, whereas women, it was much lower on the list, and women were more interested in fulfilling jobs, financial security. And what was super interesting was that for male Trump supporters, having children was the number one marker of success for them. Liberal women, it was, further down on the list. And even with Trump supporting women, it was much further down on the list. So there's a real disconnect there. And it sort of goes to show why Republicans are spending so much time and energy and money trying to convince women that being a trad wife is amazing. Another study, this time in the American Journal of Public Health, this showed that infant deaths rose by 7.2% in states that enacted abortion restrictions after Dobbs. So after Roe was overturned, the states that enacted abortion bans saw a huge spike in infant deaths, which is not surprising. We have seen numbers like this before, unfortunately, but it's a really good reminder that there is nothing pro-life about these laws. We're getting close to the end, I promise. Just a couple of items of state news. The Republican running for governor in Pennsylvania, Stacey Garrity, is trying to make voters forget that she's an anti-abortion extremist. She removed all of the anti-abortion merch from her campaign website. She's saying she'll respect the current law on the books. Sure. In Louisiana, the Louisiana Illuminator has an investigation showing that Governor Jeff Landry's administration has failed to provide even the most basic oversight into the millions of dollars that the state is giving to anti-abortion crisis pregnancy centers. And in South Carolina, abortion rights advocates are trying to raise the alarm on SB 323, which is a total abortion ban that would allow abortion patients to be punished as murderers, that would ban pro-choice websites, that would ban certain kinds of birth control. I have more information about that at the newsletter, but make sure to check that one out. I know this feels like a million years ago, but Donald Trump actually said that domestic violence shouldn't be counted in crime statistics. He said that things that take place in the home, they call a crime. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say that is a crime. Again, I know that feels somehow like a million years ago. That was last week, the president saying domestic violence shouldn't be in crime statistics. So yeah, just a little bit of news over the last week. This is why I publish Abortion Every Day. This is why every week I do the Week in Abortion for those who can't read every day, to make sure that you're somewhat caught up. They think that we're going to be too overwhelmed to act. It's really, really important that that doesn't happen.